Okay, welcome. Nice to have you with me again today on Doctor Teach Me to Parent. We have a great program for you today as we interview our very special guests. They're local. Connie Sanborn is a local high school teacher for many years. Connie, how many years?
Well, I taught at McLean for 36 years.
36 years. And his wife is Donna, who has supported him for all those 36 years of high school teaching and beyond that. How long have you been married?
We've been married over 56 years.
56 years. That's a record, but it's a good example.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
a tremendous example for couples today that are getting married and thinking about getting married. Do it for the long haul.
Absolutely.
You guys have had your ups and downs, no doubt, but you stick with it and you stay with it, and it's wonderful, isn't it?
Oh, yes, definitely, yeah.
So anyway, they're going to be our guests, and we got some very special topics to talk about that are some emotional topics, but very much part of Connie's life and Donna's life together as they will share that with us in just a little bit. But before we really start, I want to give you the quote for the day, which I generally do. And this is your choice, if you will. Life makes some people better and other people bitter. And I think that's a very important message for us to contemplate and think about, is that life is tough. Life is hard. Life has had hard knocks. You guys have had hard knocks. You've had some very tough times. But you know, life can then have an influence on you. And it does have an influence on you. And you're either going to be better because of the experiences that you've gone through, or you're going to be a bitter soul because of the life experiences that you've gone through. And I think you've chosen the better rather than the bitter way of responding to life experiences, right?
Yes, that's
Yes.
true.
I mean, you had that choice.
Yeah, had a choice.
Do you ever remember a time when you really did make that choice by saying, you know, I'm not going to be bitter anymore. I'm going to start being better. I'm going to start having a different perspective on the things that have happened to me. Did you ever come to that point, Connie, and
I decided.
make that decision?
I decided many years ago, because of how my stepdad acted and treated me at times, I decided I wasn't going to be that way.
Yeah, it is a choice. You know, a guy like that, a stepdad, or father, or anybody else, can just turn you into a very bitter soul. And but you got to come to that point in life. What was it that drove you to that decision? What was it that said, make this choice, this or that?
I had a very loving mother. My mother was a very
Yeah.
loving person, and she had a real positive influence on my life at that point. I wasn't a believer at that time, but she did have a very real positive effect upon me, and I think I acquired some of her personality.
And that was part of it, that she was kind of a upbeat, a more optimistic, more positive person.
And she had had a lot of hard knocks, and she came through it with.
So she had her own tough times.
Oh, yes, she did.
So she
Yes,
could
she
have been a bitter person, but she must have chose to be a better person.
a better person.
And then that made you consider that as well. So you then were influenced by her.
Yes, that's
in
right.
that regard.
Yes.
That's a very interesting kind of process, isn't it?
Yes, it
yeah,
is.
it is. Yeah. Well, look at you would kind of mention a little bit about your background, and you were a school teacher here.
Yes.
And you taught at McLean High School and taught math, right?
Yes.
And all 36 years of math. I can't think of anything more boring. But you must have found great joy
Oh, I did.
in math
I try to make it interesting.
and made it interesting for students. But math was not one of my strong points, but I had a lot of it, as we all have. But the other thing is that you really participated in the whole school program. After school, you coached, and you became part of the Christian Fellowship for Christian Athletes.
Yes.
And you really work with students in a lot of different ways as well. We're going to talk about that later.
Okay.
But are you glad you were a teacher?
Yes,
I mean, was that a good thing? You look back on it now?
I look back at it now, and I think that the Lord chose me to have that occupation.
Why? Why you? Why that occupation?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I soon realized as I was teaching that I liked math, but I liked people better, and so it was an occupation that where you could interact with people a lot, and hopefully make a difference in their lives.
I think I look back on math teachers as people who love math more than students.
Oh yes,
You know.
I taught with some like that. Yes, yes. Yeah.
Donna, was he a good teacher?
Oh, he was an excellent teacher. I went to watch him one time. I was going to help him grade papers. Could not grade one paper. I was just sitting there in awe of how he could be so wonderful with the kids and funny, and mostly they called him corny.
Not Connie, but corny, huh?
But such a good teacher. He loved kids.
Uh-huh. You know, kids are very fortunate to have a teacher who loved them and who cared for them and showed that, demonstrated that.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what you're saying, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you learn math that day when you were there, or did you?
I wasn't the best math student, but I can teach him how to spell pretty good.
Yeah, I couldn't spell.
It's very interesting. Spelling is in the left part of the brain, and math is on the right side of the brain. So the two of you make a good pair.
Yes.
We were very opposite attracted, but the Lord put us together. We are convinced.
Yeah. So you had a great experience. Teaching was a good profession. It was a good occupation.
Yes,
it was
yes,
a good
it was.
way of life.
I think the Lord put me there.
And students flourished under you.
I had a great trig teacher in high school, Bill Gustafson, two of whose kids, or all three of whose kids I later had in class. But he had an influence on me, thinking about eventually being a math teacher.
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't
yeah.
want to do that initially, but his influence was important.
Yeah. What do you think makes up a good teacher? You know, when you think of, okay, you were a good teacher. So what do you think are the 1, 2, or 3 traits or skills or attributes that you would say, this is really what a good teacher is comprised of?
I think you have to really care about people. You know, not just kids, but you have to care about people.
More than the kids.
Yeah.
People involved their parents.
There's a lot of people involved, parents, colleagues, all that kind
Sure.
of thing. I do think that's, and I think that the kids see that, you know, whether or not you care about,
They know that.
you know, their progress
Yeah.
academically or whatever in their lives. So I think
know
that's
that.
very important. And of course, knowing your subject material.
Well, you got to be skilled in your case, math.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I think the kids are more receptive to what you're teaching too.
Because you're skilled in it.
Yeah, skilled at it, you know, and they but of course they realize you care about them, so they want to maybe perform well. And I can't think of a third one.
Well, let me give you a third one.
Yeah.
You know, teacher like you knows math. You know math, but you have to know how to teach math.
Certainly.
You have to know how kids learn the things that you know. There's some kind of a skill in being able to take a kid down the road of math and say, okay, here's where you start and here's where you end up, and the kid gets there. He understands math as compared to just numbers.
Yes, I really think in the years I taught, I learned some things. One was if the student, I think, believed that you really cared about them.
Okay.
I really think that influenced them to want to learn, and I think that's really a key.
So then they pay attention.
Yeah,
and want to learn.
And want to learn, pay attention. I think that's really the key. Because I know with my trig teacher in high school, I would pay attention to him because I felt like he cared about us.
Absolutely, sure. I read an article not too long ago, but that for girls, age 15 is the point in time in their life when they decide to leave mathematics or decide to stay with it and really commit to mathematics. It's an age 15, so that's ninth grade.
Yeah, that'd be about a sophomore.
Yeah, maybe a sophomore in high school.
High school, yes.
So a girl is more for girls than guys, but that's where girls start to make that decision, or do make that decision that math is for them. Do you believe that this idea that girls are not meant for math?
Oh no, I don't believe that at all. I had some very sharp girls at math. In fact, there's a number of them teaching math now themselves that I had as students. You know, so no, I've heard all that. I've read all that about.
Yeah, we've had that idea that that's not for girls,
that kind of thing. But I do have quite a number of young ladies now teaching math.
Yeah,
at secondary level, you know, that I had in class. So,
do you think there's some truth to this idea about the sophomore year, the 15-year-old girl? She decides for math or not.
Yeah, that could possibly be. Might be true of others, boys too.
Well, it could be, but this was a study particularly done with girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's very important. You know, there's a point in time, I guess, we have to decide that we're going to do this or we're not going to do it, and maybe that's really what that thing was all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you taught math, and you worked with kids before school, after school,
Yes.
during school in ways, and and on a personal level. You counseled them. You became part of that Fellowship of Christian Athletes, where you guided them after school. Would you say, though, that the marriage that you had with Donna, the two of you, facilitated or helped you become a good teacher?
Yes, I do. Well, that's a good question. I really believe that because Donna's been extremely supportive of what I was doing, and she became involved. You know, because I would talk to her about students at home and things like that.
Yeah, very important.
And then when I was coaching, she became our scorekeeper and all that stuff. So she knew the kids as well as I did.
And the kids knew her.
And the kids.
I mean, you were kind of a team then, weren't you?
Many kids knew her. Yes.
Yeah. So you were a team.
That's exactly right.
So then you felt really your marriage helped you become a good teacher.
Yes, I do.
So that's a fourth point.
Yes, I do. And Donna was supportive of my, activities and that kind of thing. So yes.
Because I do think that's true for anybody who's in a profession and maybe other occupations as well. You know, that your marriage really kind of helps you become a good at it and effective, or it interferes with.
Oh, and it could interfere with, certainly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Takes drain of energy and distraction and all the rest. Well, you know, in the sense for parents, it's good to know. You know, and it's good to know that this is really what happens in the area of having the whole thing about a marriage working together.
Yes.
You know, and making sure that you are working all together.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people realize, but if you're a good teacher, that's very time consuming.
Sure.
And a lot of
grading
papers.
Well, let's take a break here at this point and come back and talk about your experience as a child and the father and two fathers you had in life and one mother, and we want to talk about that a little bit. So we'll do that, okay? Join us here in a few minutes, okay?
All right.
The Green Gables Care Home is a 24-hour assisted living facility for the elderly located in Clovis, California, offering spacious private and semi-private rooms which are wheelchair approved, catering to the special person in your life who needs attention and wants to live in a loving home environment. The Green Gables Care Home has assisted living in secured homes for elderly with Alzheimer's, memory loss, and for your loved ones needing assistance with their activities of daily living. Call 559-297-9438 and visit greengablescarehome.com.
Sometimes good intentions hurt rather than help. For just $1.76 per meal, the Fresno Rescue Mission offers more than food. We offer hope. Please donate today.
Do you need a locksmith? Layman's Lock and Safe Service and Repair is available for you. 559-228-1805.
Gained a lot, learned a lot, and got a lot of love. If it weren't for the knowledge that I had gained from the classes at PCC, I probably wouldn't be the mom I am today. See, there it goes.
I would love you to meet my son, Aaron. My situation was very difficult. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out.
We graduated in June 2010, and we got married in July. And through family, the Pregnancy Care Center changed our lives.
The Pregnancy Care Center was a huge, vital part in helping me walk through that pregnancy, in educating me and loving on me during that time.
Choosing a Medicare plan can be difficult and frustrating. Susan Hatch can guide you through the Medicare maze and help find the right plan for you. Susan helps people understand the confusing and drastic changes that occur every year in Medicare. Susan will only recommend plans that will protect your assets and allow you to continue to see your personal doctor. As a 100% independent agent, Susan is not controlled by any particular insurance company to steer a person onto any one particular plan. Susan was awarded the #1 Medicare supplement agent in California. Look for Susan's Medicare question and answers every Monday in the Fresno Bee. Call Susan at 559-307-2287 and visit MedicareToday.net.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
All right, welcome back as we continue Dr. Teach Me to Parent. And our topic today is the life of Connie Sanborn and his wife Donna. And as we noted earlier today that he was a school teacher here in math for 36 years, and I want to kind of change the subject a little bit and talk about Connie's personal life as a child. It's a story that we need to hear, and it's a story that we need to think about. There's great lessons in his personal story, and particularly in the day and age in which we live. So kind of listen in as we kind of take a look at Connie's personal life as a child growing up. The way I understand it, Connie, is really like you had two families. You had your mother and your father, whom you did not know, and then later have a mother and a stepfather,
yes,
who you came to know, and the time in between was a lot of years. But that very first family, I'll call it that, it was really just your mother. She raised you as an individual,
and the family that she rented the bedroom from. The older lady really looked after me. I'd come home from school, and then. Her husband, the older fellow, he passed away one time. I remember that very distinctly. I remember when they brought the gurney in and took him out. That was very traumatic because they were basically kind of grandparents to me.
Yeah,
and
but you were born as kind of an object of rape, weren't you?
Yes.
How did that?
I did not know that until
you didn't
later.
know that
till later, but I found out that, in the words of my mother, that we found out later when my stepdad passed away, that she said he forced himself upon me. And so that's how I was conceived.
So your mother had a choice. She could have aborted you.
Yes.
In those days, could have.
Could
not
have.
as popular to do.
Could have.
But she chose to keep you, is that?
Yes, she did.
How do you feel about that?
I'm certainly glad she did. And as we found out the story, she, of course, came from Cherokee, Iowa. And when she found out she was pregnant, it was very embarrassing.
Sure.
So couldn't really tell people about it. So she found out there was a home for unwed mothers in Kansas City, Missouri. She got a train ticket, came to Kansas City without telling anyone. And that's why I was born in Kansas City, Missouri.
Sure. I remember those home for unwed mothers. They were like big hotels. And, a lady would be in a room for a period of time, deliver, and then go back home. And that's where she lived for 3, 4, 5 months.
Yes.
And I assume that's what your mother did.
That's what my mother did.
Yeah.
And I only found that story out much later. And the only reason she came to Fresno was because she had a sister that married a farmer back in Iowa, and he had purchased a farm, or he developed a farm here in Fresno. So she thought, well, can't go back to Cherokee, Iowa, so I'll come to Fresno, California.
Yeah.
And she got off the train, she said, and it was in August, and she...
Oh, brother.
Oh.
Yeah, that'd
she
been a hot time.
Never experienced heat like that before.
Yeah.
I won't tell you exactly the words she used, but...
But you never knew your own father? Never knew him?
No, I did not know him.
Did you learn about him, though?
Yes, I learned many years later when my stepdad passed away, and we had to, take my mother around Social Security Administration and try to, finish up affairs and things.
Sure, sure.
And so anyway, I think Donna, my wife Donna, was the one that asked her, didn't you? Asked her,
Yes,
what's the story?
On the way home, I just said, Lita, who was Connie's father? He did not want me ever to ask her before. And she told me, and it was very surprising to us.
So she tells you about his natural father.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So now you have a choice to either keep that to yourself or to relay it to him.
We very well right away related to him.
Uh-huh.
He was very surprised, and he sent his mother 24 red roses.
Because
and
my mother
thanked her.
Is that right? Oh, thanked her, you mean because of her choice to keep him
Yes.
and not abort?
Yes.
And she was apparently very upset about the whole situation, probably fearful that I was going to reject her or something.
Sure.
So Donna said, well, we need to send her flowers. We did.
As a kind of a thank you gift,
thank you.
I assume.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a long talk with her. I told her, thanking her for keeping me and choosing to keep me, you know.
Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, yeah, it was, yes.
Did you ever hear from her after that? I mean, did she understand what you were doing?
Well, yes, she did, because that next summer we drove to back to Iowa. We met some people back there that had known my natural father. They were surprised that I existed, by the way. And then we came back through Phoenix, Arizona, where we found out he ended up and was buried. So we met some people down there that had known him and had no idea I existed.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But everyone was happy that you existed.
Oh, yeah. There were some very interesting conversations.
And that must have
we
been
had with people, yes.
I can't imagine what that would do to somebody like you. I mean, just to know that you were born under a rape circumstance,
Yes.
that your mother chose to keep you, deliver you, raise you,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and you flourished.
Yes, and thank you to my mother was, what should I say? My mother was a loving person, with a little quirky.
Well,
We call her a character.
character. She.
Well, maybe so, but nonetheless.
And I think because of that, she was able to really survive.
Yeah.
She really did through some other.
Well, she raised you by herself,
Yeah, exactly.
right? I mean, that's
up to the point.
That's
where,
not an easy thing for any mother to
That's
do,
right.
then as well as today.
And then
I mean, that's a tough job to take on.
it was a very difficult time, by the way, when she told me one time. We were out at her sister and her husband's place when my mother told me one time that she and my stepdad were going to go up to Reno to get married that weekend. It was on a Friday night that she told me that. Well, the older lady we were living with then proceeded to fill me full of a bunch of stories negatively about my future stepdad.
Oh, about the man that she was going to marry.
Marry and that kind of thing. So there was a lot of...
So almost trying to turn you against him.
Exactly. She told me I could...
Why would she do that?
I don't know. She said I could live with her.
Oh, she wanted you.
Oh, yes.
She wanted you.
Yeah,
so she turns this story against your about-to-be stepfather.
Yeah, exactly.
And hoping that you would say, no, I don't want to do that, and I'll go with her.
Yeah, she said you could choose to stay with me. Well, my mother tells me no. I was pretty young. My mother says, no, you're coming with us. And
sure.
So that was rather traumatic. I did.
Yeah, looking back on that,
over
though, Connie, do you think that was the right thing to do? Your mother made that choice. I mean, she said, no, you're going to come with me.
Oh, yeah. That was the right choice for her, absolutely.
And for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For me, too. So.
So that brings a stepfather into your life then.
Yes, it did.
Now, how old were you then?
10.
You were 10.
10
So
years
it's not an uncommon pattern for kids today to have a stepfather come into their life at age 10.
Yes.
I mean, good or bad. But so that's when a stepfather, and you accepted him in spite of the fact that you were told stories that were negative about him.
I did accept him, but he had been in World War II under General Patton for 5 years, and I think it affected him mentally.
So
because
he developed some of those patent behaviors and attitudes.
Yes. Oh, yes. And
it was pretty tough.
Yeah, and he was, I don't know how to say it, he was verbally and physically abusive. But I will say, to be honest, later, many years later, he really, when Donna got to know him, he was completely different. He had mellowed out. I think he maybe finally decided that I wasn't some kind of threat or something, but he was, early on, he was
If you
very,
came into his life at your age 10,
yeah.
did he ever accept you? Do you ever feel like he really took you on as a son?
Later, probably, when, when I married Donna and we had
It wasn't
kids.
until after you married, so that would have been
Yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah.
No, 15 years later.
Yeah, it was, but I went through some, rough years.
He was an abusive man.
He was verbally and physically at times abusive, and
We don't make those distinctions.
Yeah.
Verbal abuse can be as harsh and hard on you as physical abuse.
Yeah, it can be.
In some ways, we see that verbal abuse can be even more harmful than physical abuse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you live with that. Now, I bet you still remember some of those things that were said.
Very clearly.
Yeah.
They're still in my mind. People have said, over the years they've said, Donna said, you got to forget that. Well, I can't.
You can't forget that.
certain things.
You can't forget that. That will never leave your memory.
Yeah, there's expressions he used with me that I will never forget. But I thank the Lord that when he finally did pass away, I at the mortuary, I went in with his body, I closed the door, and I forgave him.
Is that right? Is that right? See, that's an interesting point, because you can forgive somebody, but you don't forget the events that had taken place, with him.
That's right.
And that stayed with you.
Yes.
But it must have given you a kind of a sense of freedom when you forgave him.
Yes, it did.
What did you forgive him for? What was the...
I forgave him for those periods of time when he was abusive and he tore my ego apart and things like that. And
do you know why he was abusive? I mean, did he have his own abuse as a kid, or was there something about you that he just could not accept?
You know what? After talking to people that knew him before World War II, I think that war did many things to him. He would tell me stories. They liberated one of the Jewish concentration camps.
Oh, yes.
Horrendous stories that he would tell me.
Yeah,
I think it affected him.
It'd been terrible.
Yeah, it affected him.
But did you ever give the idea that it was you that he did not like, as compared to him just being an abusive man, a sour man, a bitter man? He had that choice of being better or bitter, and he became a bitter man and took it out on you.
Well, I didn't think he liked me. But
as a kid, you would probably think that way.
That's what I thought. But later in life, I really did come to grips with a lot of things, and I realized that I think he was a product of what happened to him in the war, and maybe he was a little bit older when he married my mother. She was a little bit older too, and so here I was, in the picture. So
one of the things about kids who are abused, and like in your case, by a father or a stepfather, they get mad at their mother for not interceding and not stopping it and not playing that strong role to protect you. Did you think that way?
I never thought that way.
You never thought that way, huh?
But I have heard that before. But I didn't think that way.
You didn't blame your mother that she didn't,
because he was abusive to her too, verbally and.
No, I never heard him ever blame his mother.
Is that right? He never blamed her. Yeah, she might have been afraid to do very much anyway, because then she would have gotten more abuse. Perhaps
she might have. Yes.
Yeah.
He was verbally. He was abusive to her too. So.
Yeah.
But he did. To be really honest, he did mellow out. After
I was going to ask
Donna,
you that. Yeah.
We had kids.
This was after you were married, after you established your own family. Later on in life, he mellows out. But you don't get the benefit of that.
No, not early on, but he loved our kids.
So they get the benefit of that, the grandkids.
Yes, they did. And like I say, when I was younger, I always thought, well, maybe he finally figured out that I somehow was not some threat to him or so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But your children... That you had 3 children. They accepted him as a grandfather.
Yes, I think so. Yes,
and he accepted them as his grandchildren.
Yeah, very much so. Yes.
Is that right?
Very much so.
So it kind of smoothed out, if you will, or
oh, it did smooth out greatly.
And Connie was able to go to the hospital when he was very ill, and tell him about the Lord. That was a very hard thing for Connie to do, but he did it.
I did it. I witnessed to him.
That was before he died.
Yeah, before he died.
Yes.
So he was in the hospital, died in the hospital.
No, he actually came home and died at home.
Okay. But you had opportunity to talk about religious matters with him, spiritual matters.
I did.
And you were able to, did you come to peace with him? You said when after he died, you went to the cemetery or to the funeral home, closed the door, went in and forgave him.
Yeah.
So did you come to peace with him, though, in the hospital, in those last days of his life?
Yeah, I think he was able to leave the hospital and come home. He died in their home, but I saw, as the years went by and we got married and we had kids, I saw him become a different person. He mellowed out. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why. I think he was angry because he had a brother who was not drafted, who was married and was not drafted, but he was not married. But he was a caretaker for his dad and his uncle, who both had strokes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that affected him either. But
well, that's kind of off what the military was in the day. One brother would go and one brother would not go to the military, go to war. Mm-hmm. And that was to kind of preserve the family, so to speak. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But you still, to this day, all these years later, remember your childhood. And the
very clearly,
and the negativism of it, and the hurt and the pain of that. You still remember that. That doesn't leave
very clearly. It does not leave.
He does cry a lot when he thinks about it, but
even to this day.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean that's true. I mean we know that that's true of children who were abused and during their childhood. They become adults. You do not forget that.
No.
And it has its impact on you, and you do relive it, and you relive it. There are things that remind you of it.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then you have to live with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think also becoming a teacher later of high school kids, and I would sometimes, kids would share things with me, and thinking that I was probably had lived a normal life, I was able to share with them some things that I think helped them.
Did you do that? Did you actually share some of your story?
Yes, I did.
With the high school kids
who they thought they were in a tough situation, and I think it helped them at times. I really do.
Well, we do want to be with people who've gone through experiences that we're going through.
Yes.
Because we relate to them, and we get that sense that they understand us.
Yes.
So I'm sure that when you related your story to high school kids, they knew that you understood them.
Yeah.
And what they were going through, and they were that much more open to share with you.
I think so too.
And it gave them maybe a little peace.
I believe so too.
Hey, we're going to take a break here.
Okay.
And go get yourself a cup of coffee and come on back in a few minutes, and we'll pick it up here with Connie and Donna Sanborn and their personal experiences and story for us today.
Dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com.
Hey! Try to close the club.
Tanya, come here. At Boys and Girls Clubs, it's not just about trying new things.
Kitchen in my hometown.
It's not about learning the right steps.
4,
or making contact.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not about exploring the future. It's about helping them build it. It's about taking steps to greatness, about making a connection. It's about proving every kid and teen has what it takes. It's about people in our clubs who bring out the greatness in every kid who enters our doors. It's not just about being on stage. It's about walking across it. Great futures start here, and here, and here.
Sat7 is a Christian media network that uses uncensored satellite television to broadcast across the Middle East and North Africa, and is also available globally online.
Okay, welcome back as we talk with Connie and Donna Sanborn. Connie was a school teacher, high school math teacher here in Fresno for 36 years. And we talked a little bit about that experience, but today is really focusing on his childhood and growing up with basically two families. The first one having a mother but not knowing his father. Mm-hmm. And then the second one having a mother and then a stepfather who became extremely abusive and hurtful, painful to him and his life, and having to live beyond that and to kind of flourish on your own, because you did. You actually have flourished. Mm-hmm. And having been born out of very unfortunate circumstances, and then flourishing and becoming a very effective teacher and working with kids in school in a lot of different ways, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But let me ask you this. When you think about step-parents, you were talking about your stepfather. Mm-hmm. What would you say to step-parents today? Stepmothers, stepfathers, what's the message that they need to hear from you?
I think it's very difficult. I think that the natural parent has to, of course, step in and with the child to make sure that the child understands that the step-parent is their parent. And,
good point.
Good point. To handle it that way, and I think for the step parent, I think that's very difficult because many kids that I have run into over the years do not treat their step parent as a parent. You know,
in my counseling with families like this, step arrangements, yeah. I always say to the kids, "Yeah, he is not your father, but he's your parent."
Mm-hmm. Good.
Or she is not your mother, mm-hmm. but she is your parent.
Yes.
And there is a distinction there. Mm-hmm. And I want you to respect them, and I want you to obey them, and I want you to honor them as a parent. Mm-hmm. Whether it was your father or your mother or not is not the point.
That's great advice.
But you're a parent.
That's great advice.
And when kids get that message, mm-hmm. I mean, I think things can settle down. Mm-hmm. But we don't often say that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad you really emphasize that yourself. That's a good point. Any other points for step parents you want to add, or?
Well, I can't think of any right now, but I do
That's
know.
Okay.
I do know it can be difficult.
It is difficult. It's very hard.
And I know of situations,
especially when you come into a child's life. In your case, at age 10.
Oh yes.
I mean, that's a tough time to come in. It's even harder when you have teenagers.
Yeah, instead of coming in there at age 1 or something.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yes. But what would you say the message that you would have for young kids?
Well, I would say young kids that have. You're probably referring to step parents.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
That would have a step parent. I would say that you have to really come to grips with that and accept them as your parent, because they're the ones that are raising you and kind of leading you hopefully the right direction.
Hopefully so, sure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You never know. I mean, how kids are going to be, but I mean, kids have to have that same message. So the message, what you say to kids, is the same message you say to the step parent.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, because it's mutual. They're both in that same situation.
We're in the situation.
And it's very important that you do that. But you went on and flourished. You had the step parenting arrangement. It was abusive. I'm sure at times you wondered if it was worth sticking with it and giving up, even for that matter. But you stuck with it.
Yes, I did.
But you flourished. What was the key thing that kind of brought you above all this abuse and all this hurt and all this pain, so that you could flourish as an individual?
Well, I think later accepting the Lord, becoming a believer, helped a lot. I wasn't exposed to Christian things early on, but when I went to Fresno State, had a friend become a believer, and he was the first one to ever witness to me, and but that initiated the process where some years later I did accept the Lord, and I think that also helped me understand situations in my childhood and helped me kind of forgive things.
So you had a faith.
Yeah, I had a faith.
That
yes.
kind of led to hope and led you to have courage and move forward.
That's right.
And not give up.
And that's why when I went into the room with my stepdad's body, I was able to forgive him.
Wow.
And that was a genuine forgiveness.
So you don't think you would have been able to forgive him had it not been for your new faith?
I don't know. I don't know if I would have been able to or not.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the faith helped.
Mm-hmm. Donna, what would you add to that in terms of what he would do to actually survive but also thrive?
I think I saw such a huge difference when he accepted the Lord 3 years after we were married. He just became a new personality,
right?
completely.
A new person.
Not only behaviorally, but Christian-wise, and treated me differently, treated others differently. Just flourished under the Lord's care. And
do you think that made him a good teacher too?
Oh,
you said
yes.
it made him a good person.
Yes.
But
I think he always had a gift for teaching.
Is that right?
Very much so. He loved kids because he worked at the Y camp and counseled a lot of them before he became a teacher.
Yeah.
We still run into students and campers every day.
So you worked for the YMCA
camp? Oh, YMCA camp.
We have that in common.
Through
I did
college.
too.
Oh, you did?
I worked for YMCA camp one time.
Yeah, I was up at Lake Sequoia those summers. And
I had a different one, but yeah,
I
was in Michigan.
Up there.
Yeah,
in Michigan. Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is if the fact that you developed a faith kind of helped you become a better teacher.
I believe
wonder
so.
if the fact
yes.
that you were abused as a kid helped you become a better teacher.
I think so too, because I could, particularly with certain kids who at times thought they were the only ones that were experiencing anything that they were, like the things they were experiencing. Well, I was able to share with them that I had experienced things, and I could listen to them with empathy.
Yeah.
And yes, that's right.
Because when you were a teacher, you were telling me earlier that you really did reach out to kids.
I tried to.
You didn't kind of wait for them to come to you.
I tried to, yes.
But you tried to see them and in their need or in their situation and just try to reach out and talk to them.
I tried to, yes.
Did kids want that? Did kids like that? Or did kids kind of reject you or offended by the fact that you would try to talk to them or learn a little bit about them?
Yeah, I think most kids enjoy that, to have someone look at them and realize that they're a person, they're existing here on Earth, and that someone is interested in them. I think that's important, yes. Important for adults, too, I think.
Yeah. The great need that we have is to be respected.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And the other great need that we have is to feel that we're significant. So when a teacher pauses and spends time with a student after school, before school, after class, and so on, that gives that kid that feeling that he's significant.
Yes.
She's significant.
That's right.
And that there's some respect there, because otherwise, why would you spend time with
that's
a
right.
student if you didn't think they were significant and you wanted to respect them?
And they're important.
And they're important to you.
That's exactly right. I believe that in God's eyes, they're very important.
So what's an example of things that you did with kids? I mean, how did you get involved in their life? How did you become involved in...
Well, frequently I would ask them, something about themselves. Were they involved in sports or something? ask them about that. Frequently, I'd go out and watch them play. Of course, I coached.
And then that became part of your life as a coach.
That was very much so, because there you really get to know kids really well, because you're with them for many, many hours. And so I would say that kind of thing. Donna and I would take kids home. So in the car we'd have a chance to talk with them, and that kind of thing. So yes, we got to know them, many kids, very well, and still know a lot of kids to this day very well.
In fact, we talked to one just last week that we hadn't talked to in a long time, that he encouraged tremendously. And the first thing she said to me when I picked up the phone, "He hasn't died, has he?" Because she's almost 60 herself.
But kids feel that way.
Yeah.
As long as you're there, they have a sense of security. And even when they become an adult, it gives that sense of safety and security, just knowing that you're still on the spot.
Kind of interested. She became a high school math teacher in Fresno, by the way, for 9 years.
But reverse that a little bit. Was there ever a student that was in trouble? Behaving in a manner that was not appropriate. Okay, how are you to find that?
Yes.
Did you ever reach out to those kids?
Yes.
Or was it just the good kids that you reached out to? If you want to think of it that way. I hate to say it that way.
I reached out to some of them also, and I saw in some cases some degree of improvement, I do remember a couple of situations I had that actually shocked me, their behavior, because I do remember just thinking right now, I had a fight one time in the classroom, and one big kid, and I actually had developed a little bit of rapport with him, and he was beating the way out of this other kid, and I told him to sit down. He actually sat down. That shocked me.
Well,
so I know why he did, because he had developed some respect for me.
Well, there you are.
Yeah,
The significance and respect. Those are the big things that kids want in their life. And as a teacher, you're at that spot where you can share that message.
Yes.
That they have significance.
Yeah, that's
and that you can respect them. There's something about them that you can respect. And when you do that, you have a kid that will learn.
I believe so too.
He'll come to class.
I just as a sidelight, there's a number of teachers in high schools in Fresno, in the Fresno area, that I had as students. So, and I really, that warms my heart to know that.
Just to know that you have spawned a whole group of math teachers out there.
Possibly so, yes, possibly so.
I mean, that is always a joy to every teacher, knowing that some of your kids became what you are.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
He also had a young man come up to him that was, I classify, a gang member. But he waited until everyone left, and he kind of said, "Mr. Sanborn, I just want to thank you for being my teacher."
Is that right?
That took a lot of courage on his part.
Oh, I remember that story so well.
You'll always remember that one.
That one.
That overdoes some of the hurt that you've had in life too.
So well.
Yeah.
He's very flexible. That is important as a teacher.
Good word.
He's had him come to his room in the middle of class crying. He always took time to go out and talk to them.
That's what kids want.
Yeah.
That's what kids need. They don't have anybody. They don't have a shoulder to cry on today.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes
they really don't.
Yep.
And you're it. So if you aren't paying attention, if you don't care, then the kid has no shoulder, to cry on.
I believe so too. I believe so. It's very important. Yes.
We heard from one girl about a month ago that wrote to him on Facebook, "Mr. Sanborn, your class was the only safe haven that I ever had."
Is that right?
Yes, that's what she said.
Beautiful.
That was a safe haven for her.
Beautiful.
That was interesting.
It isn't a building. It's you as a person. You're the safe person.
That's exactly.
And where
right.
you are, there's a sense of safety.
Yeah, it's not the room or anything. It's
That's
just
right.
the person. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
I agree.
Yeah, but you also said that you coached.
Yes.
Baseball, I guess it was, right?
Well, I coached two sports. I coached girls varsity basketball for 10 years, and the girls varsity McLean softball team.
Okay, so you did the coaching, and then you also, after school, became involved in what is known as Fellowship of Christian Athletes. What is that? Help me understand.
Well,
what that is.
The Fellowship of Christian Athletes is a national organization that uses athletics as a entree into kids' lives, and and is able to present the gospel and really aid kids in developing a faith and helps them live their lives. So many campuses have FCA groups that they'll have meetings once a week or once every 2 weeks. Might have pizza, that kind of thing. But
Sure.
There's a lot of good things going on with FCA.
So this would be like an after-school club.
Yeah, some meet at lunchtime.
All right.
Off hours and that kind of thing.
And you serve pizza, and these
Pizza,
kids would
yeah.
come, and
Yes.
and then you would
Hear
give a little
good
talk to
speak-
them on some kind of a religious topic of some type or some discussion that you'd have. Is that the idea?
We'd get an athlete in there who, a Christian athlete in there who could talk about their faith and how their faith affected their ability to participate in athletics and help.
And there's a camp every summer that many of them get to go to, where they hear sometimes Olympic athletes share their faith.
Mm-hmm. And we would raise money to send kids to camp.
Many of them accepted the Lord there.
Yes.
So in other words, these kids at school really had you as not only a math teacher.
Oh, yes.
And just see you come and go. But they had you after school. They had you at noon.
Yes.
I mean, they had your life when you were there. I mean, you were 100% kid-oriented.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, it sounds like.
I would say so,
I
yes.
mean, if with the coaching and, with the Christian athletes, I mean, that after school or at noon, and then these kids that would talk to you and grab you in the hallway before you went out to your car to go home. It was a long day for you.
I would say I was invested, yes.
It was a long day for you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But you were one of those teachers that really just gave and gave and gave, didn't you?
Well, I hope I did, yes. I would frequently leave the house at 6 in the morning, and then with the coaching thing, I'd get home at what time? Maybe 8 o'clock or
sometimes
something.
11.
Yeah.
In basketball, that was later. Softball.
But you were
was
honored
later.
at one point in time, too, as I understand.
Well, I've had yes.
You've had many honors.
Yeah, a few honors.
But at McLean, there's a athletic field.
Yeah,
athletic field that is named, what's the name of it?
The Conrad Sanborn Field.
Connie Sanborn Field. That's you.
Yeah.
That's you.
Now they've redone the fields this last year. I don't know if they're going to rename the field after.
Oh, they won't rename it.
But for years, on the scoreboard up said Conrad Sanborn Field. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. So that whole field there at McLean High School has your name on it.
Yeah, it had my name on it.
As an honor that you coached and that you were committed to kids.
Yes, that's right.
And we had a big banquet for him in 2017 with over 200 kids that came.
When I retired.
From coaching,
Yeah.
But most of them talked about his influence as a Christian.
So a teacher can have a huge impact.
Oh, I think so.
On the kids. I mean, huge.
Yeah.
And that's what you did.
I had teachers that were impactful in my life. So did Donna, that.
Yes.
I'm sure we all did. I'm sure you did too.
Yeah. You're talking to parents, Connie, and what's the message to parents today? That you want parents to tell their kids when they leave home in the morning and go to school, for that day. What would you want parents to? What's the message you want them to give their kids?
Well, I think one is tell them that they're loved. Tell them they're loved, and that you have certain expectations for them. And one is you don't want to get a call from the school.
No, you wouldn't want that
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think telling them you love them and you have expectations for their behavior is certainly very important.
What about this? Would you encourage parents to tell their kids, go find a teacher like you were?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Go
yes.
find a teacher that is interested in you. Go find a teacher that is willing to give that little extra effort.
That's a good idea.
And go find that teacher.
That's a good idea.
Take a teacher as a class. But even if you're not in the classroom, get to know that teacher. Would that?
I think that's a good idea. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I think that's a good idea, yes.
Why wouldn't we just encourage kids? Because not all teachers are like you. I mean, we know that there are good teachers and bad teachers, and we know there are involved teachers and uninvolved teachers, teachers who are engaged and teachers who are disengaged, unengaged.
Yeah.
We know that. But there are a lot of teachers that are willing to invest in the students' lives.
Yeah, and I would say there's a lot more than maybe people really know about. There's an awful lot of teachers out there that are, engaged, or they wouldn't be in the occupation they're in.
That's right.
You know, they wouldn't
That's right.
be working with kids if they, you know, weren't interested in how kids develop, you know, and learn and that kind of thing. So
now you said you have 3 children.
Yes.
I assume you raised your kids in the same way, that you were involved with them, you did things as a family.
Yeah, we did.
You invested in them.
Very much
so. Your work was not done when you finished school.
No.
You started another job at home.
That's right.
So what was your family like? What was it like, Donna?
Well, it was wonderful. We maybe do not have a lot of riches financially, but all 3 of our children and grandchildren and their spouses love the Lord, are in Christian service.
Mm-hmm. So church and faith was a very important part of family life.
They either teach in a Christian school. Our son is a pastor. Our older daughter worked as a church bookkeeper for many years. Mm-hmm. They're all wonderful children, very blessed, so we are rich.
Yeah, we are. Donna and I talk about that a lot. We are rich.
And we are in this together.
Yes.
I've been
we started that way. I mean, you've been involved in his life throughout, and you were involved in the raising of your children, you know, together, and you've been a team.
Well, I've been very ill for a year, and he was a 24/7 caretaker. I could not have done it without him. I love him very much.
Well, it comes back to you, doesn't it? I mean, when you give to people, people give to you. And when you serve people, people serve you when that need is there.
Yes.
And you prove it.
And we have wonderful, wonderful family that are very supportive. Mm-hmm. We pray for them every day. They pray for us, and we know that and feel it.
Mm-hmm. It's been a great life.
Yes, absolutely. I'd count it great. Yes,
but it started bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when you think of it, you know, I mean, being born as a result of rape, mm-hmm. and your mother's choosing to keep you and
thank you, Mother.
And raise you, and thankful to her, and then you flourished, you know, without a father in your life. Mm-hmm. She raised you as a single mother, and then all of a sudden another man comes in your life, and he is nothing but abusive to you. But you stay with it, your mother stays with it, and you somehow flourish in spite of it.
I will say a couple things to be honest about my stepdad. He kept the same job all of his life, which I thought was important. He wasn't a drinker or anything like that. Mm-hmm. That would have been horrible.
No, that'd been worse. Yeah,
but he was, in terms of that, he was okay, and I'm thankful for that. By the way.
Yeah, I'll bet you are.
Oh yeah, absolutely right.
And
go ahead, Donna.
We feel the Lord really brought us together. Mm-hmm. We're very opposites, but I do remember Billy Graham was asked one time about his marriage, and he said, "We're divinely incompatible."
That means you have strengths that he doesn't.
That's
and
right.
And he has strengths that you don't, but that you mesh those together.
That's right.
That's what that means.
Actually, I met her when I was going with someone else who I'd asked to marry me, and she had said yes. But I married Donna. I met Donna at that time. Donna was working at Mount Hermon.
That meant to be.
Yeah.
That was meant to be.
The
you
other
know
gal
that.
was working there too. So.
Hey, we had a great conversation. Thank you. This is a great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your life. It's hard. It's a harsh life to share, but it's an important one to share. And you know, we need to learn, you know, from other people. We need to learn how to be better parents. We need to learn how to be better families. Mm-hmm. We need to learn how to be better students. Mm-hmm. And that's likewise, true. We need to learn how to be better teachers.
Yes.
And I think you've shared a lot of that today, of a little message for everybody.
Well, thank you for having us.
So I appreciate that.
Let
me give you a little message before we end
sure.
Today, and in term a little quote.
Okay.
Maybe you'd like to even comment on it,
okay.
if you will. Life is what you make it, or what it makes of you.
Well, that's a great quote.
You know, that's a great quote. Life is what you make it, or what it makes of you.
Mm-hmm. A lot of truth in that, isn't it? Yes,
yeah.
You can really turn sour inside.
You can turn sour,
or you can, you know, become a flourishing flower.
And that's what you did.
Yeah,
in spite of all the negativism and all the hurt and pain, life blossoms. You blossomed.
Yeah,
your students blossom. Your family blossomed. Your kids, your grandkids blossom. So what happened?
Well, I thank the Lord for one thing. That I thank all this of how I met him, And it's a very, very odd set of circumstances how that happened too. But
thanks for sharing that.
And I met Donna too.
Thanks for sharing that. Donna, thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
And bye for now. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Pompe disease is a progressive, multisystemic, debilitation, and often fatal muscular disease. The United Pompe Foundation was formed to assist those affected by Pompe with the medical costs and other expenses that they may not be able to fully cover through their insurance. Visit UnitedPompe.com to learn more and to make a tax-deductible contribution to the United Pompe Foundation.
When I set foot on the campus to come visit it, I was struck by how open and how welcoming the students and the professors were. Coming to Gordon was like coming home.
I think intentional community is what Jesus modeled with his disciples, and Gordon has really fostered a good place for intentional community to happen.
Gordon is a place where you can meet people from all over the world and hear their stories. I meet a lot of different people who are shaping who I am today.
Gordon seeks to graduate men and women of character and of leadership, and the world is the place where Gordon students belong.
Choosing to go to Gordon was, I think, one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Expect to be changed.